Higher education is entering a transformative era, driven by advancements in AI, evolving economic factors, and shifting career expectations. This shift represents an unbundling of the traditional college experience, reimagining how content, credentials, and career readiness are delivered in a modern landscape. So tonight on The Rundown, we explore how universities are adapting and redefining their value proposition for an AI-native world. Let's get after it. Welcome to The Rundown. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to The Rundown. Welcome to Office Hours. Good to have you here. If you are watching us on Mukana, hello. Please say hi in the chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, do the same. We can see you wherever you are. We're watching you. And I am thrilled to be back together with you tonight. We have a really fantastic discussion lined up for you. It's something that I'm personally very excited about, and I'm really, really excited to say hello to our esteemed panelists. You know and love them. Let's make the rounds real quick. Hey, Tamara, how are you?
I am great. I thought I wasn't going to make it, and I was like driving. I'm like, I have to get back.
I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're here. Good to see you. And hello to Mr. Tony Mobley.
Greetings all.
How was the show last night?
Glad to be here. How'd the show go last night?
Yeah.
We had a bit of a mishap. The Mimo Live froze about 12 minutes in, and we ended up having to. Mickey McAture came to the rescue and saved us and posted the show.
Well, there you go. There you go. Lesson learned. Always have a Mickey. I mean, a backup. I mean, a second, a Mickey. Just have a Mickey. That's all you really need.
Just keep a Mickey around.
Or a Lois. Have a Mickey or a Lois. How you doing, Lois? Oh, we can't hear you because you're muted. And while you're unmuting, Leo is saying hi from Los Alamos.
I didn't want to make noise. So for those of you who don't know who Mickey is, go to Office Hours some morning, and he's a mainstay.
Yes, he is. Absolutely. And Tony, are you trying to say hello to us because you're muted?
I was just saying that he's usually on camera on Wednesday mornings. So if you get a chance to
Audio
go
day.
to Office Hours.
Audio day. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Dave Troutman, how are you, sir?
I think Mickey is the mast of the ship that holds the biggest sail that gets us moving. So yes, we all really endear to him. He's a lovely guy, and not a sourpuss of any kind. He's just a charm.
Absolutely. As are you, my friend.
I did want to say that I'm probably the least qualified guy to be speaking to this subject. I never went to university.
Well, so that's perfect.
Yes. And I worked behind, like I was support staff at a university in a faculty of education. So I learned a lot about education, but never got the degree that goes with it. So.
Well, that's perfect. I'm especially glad that you're here then. I'm also especially glad that John...
dumb questions, and they'll get John talking.
There you go. John Idelson, Professor Idelson is here. How are you, sir?
Very good, and it's a pleasure to be here. But when I saw the topic, I felt I'd have to come out of hiding. I try not to be on the air too much because I don't want to embarrass my children, but I do have some thoughts about the university and where it's been and where it's going.
As you should. It's good to have you. I'm really, really thrilled that you're here. Before we start talking about universities, let's jump into some news. So does anyone here have a Twitter badge?
Mm-mm.
No, neither do I. Well, you can now get a Spotify badge. And I thought this was absolutely fascinating. Spotify is rolling out verified by Spotify badges to help listeners determine the difference between AI and, I don't want to say real artists, but I guess human artists, AI and human artists. The badge appears on artist profiles and in search results. Artists, in order to qualify, they have to show a real-world presence through concerts or merch or linked social accounts. They have to demonstrate consistent listener engagement over time. And AI artists and personas are excluded. I think this is absolutely fascinating. And boy, did we ever imagine that we would have to have a real person badge on our music.
My immediate thought was, how long does it take before the AI sue for discrimination?
Some AI
And my
agent is
thought-
going to sue. Yeah.
My thought was, this only helps people who are already established and, big names and stuff like that. If you're new and young, you don't have all of the requirements that they require, even though you're a human being.
Right. Yep, that's true.
Well, this is an area where Zoom is taking some leadership. In April, they rolled out something focusing on bridging the gap between artificial intelligence and human interaction. And they have announced a real-time human verification with World ID partnership. So in a Zoom call, you could be verified as being a human, not some AI model. Very fascinating, because they talk about verifying that you're a human, but some humans have agents that they want them to be able to act for them as a human. So where Twitter may say, or Spotify, this is a human, me as a human may want to say my avatar can shop at Amazon when I need to buy Kleenex.
They used to require you to have a copy of the New York Times current edition to be able to verify proof of life, So maybe that's what they'll have to do, is the AI can't hold up a newspaper and say it's new. Of course, it'll fake New York Times, but yeah, okay.
What's fascinating
do check out the World ID partnership.
What's fascinating about what you just said, John, is that this idea of differentiating between AI and human works until, as you mentioned, agents are fully acting on our behalf. And as soon as agents are fully acting on our behalf, let's remember that Zoom's CEO made a big deal when he rolled out that an AI avatar can attend your meetings for you. And he, famously did an all hands meeting, I think, as at least in part as his AI avatar. So as soon as avatars and agents are good enough to actually show up at meetings and do things for us, this will work. But once that happens, I'm not sure that we're gonna want this. What blows my mind is that right now, 44%, this is according to Deezer, 44% of new music uploads are now AI generated. And I think that there are lots of folks out there who would say that's terrible. As a musician who has music on Spotify, and who has played around in a very tiny way comparatively with some of the, like Suno and some of these tools, these tools are amazing. They are mind-blowingly good, I think.
Of course, I'm waiting for the day when my agent gets me fired. So, not showing up at the meetings and not doing the email returns and just lazing around, doing nothing, playing with his friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And Sky is saying, I'll have my agent contact your agent. We'll do lunch. Yeah, that's absolutely where we're going.
But isn't there a difference between choosing to use an avatar in a meeting that you're really in instead of just turning off your camera?
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Versus having someone else attend the meeting, something else attend the meeting.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's thank you. That's a very important distinction that I wasn't making before. You're absolutely right about that. Yes. It's rolling out on an ongoing basis. They're quick to say that the absence of a badge does not mean a profile will not receive one in the future. Basically, for those smaller bands, Lois, if you don't see a badge, it doesn't mean that they're AI. It means that they're not human yet,
They've not
I guess.
been
I don't know.
verified.
It feels like it would be better if the badge went the other way, where it's like this is AI generated as
Ah,
opposed to this
interesting.
is a human that is worthy of a badge versus a human that's not worthy of a badge versus AI. So it feels like they're not solving the problem by pointing out that someone is a human versus something else is AI.
And that
That-
badge needs to be a big size in the corner, this is
Right.
artificial. This is not real. Yeah.
Right. I wonder what it. I'm trying to see what it.
So,
It's
but-
not a
but if
big.
you-
It's not a big thing at all. It here I'll just bring it up so everyone can see. At least what they're saying it will be is this little guy right under. You can see Delwater Gap, and then right underneath verified by Spotify. Presumably,
Is
what
it one that you can purchase like you can on X?
on Twitter? Right. I don't think so. No. No. I'm sorry,
So the
Lois. You were
problem-
saying something.
the problem with issuing badges for things that are AI generated is that each individual AI generation is a different personality. And so how in the world could you catch them all?
Well, that's what I mean. That's
That's the
what
reason
universities
we're
are-
going
and
for
schools are-
humans.
right. Universities are dealing with that right now. They have, my daughters all have to turn their papers in through, I don't know what it's called. There's some verification tool that is not 100%, but it makes sure that you're not using AI. That's
So
what it's doing.
the old thing about find every picture that has a bus in it, that doesn't work anymore, does it?
It actually does. I still get those all the time. Apparently,
Yes,
AI
but
isn't very good at
Does
finding
AI
buses.
not, AI doesn't know buses
I
or
don't know.
stop signs or whatever it is?
I don't know.
I'm
There's-
curious how this is going to change when AI is generating the music versus a person generating the AI.
wait.
So right
explain
now,
that.
AI music exists because a human has generated that search or generated that
directed-
music. They've
yeah.
directed that search to happen, or that they've directed the AI to exist. But there will be a time when agents are able to do things on their own, and when an agent is when AI is creating AI music, I wonder how that will look differently for us. Now we're getting very sci-fi.
Well, that's I hadn't even thought about that. But of course, agency means that AI agents could create their own music, and there's no human interaction. Well, there is human interaction because the AI is, of course, learned from us. But yeah,
So how does this tie into our next news? Because where you've got the capability of being verified as human, and then you can say, now I want to communicate only with other people who are verified as human. That's the thing that TikTok's doing, isn't it?
yes, I guess so. So TikTok announced, this is also fascinating, this new campus hub. Now, first of all, let me say, I'm on TikTok. I never post anything. I don't know how to use it. All I know is that if I keep going like this, I get to see more stupid stuff. So I just do this all day. So this new campus hub that they're creating is dedicated college group chats, and it does include a verification feature. Now, it already has this feature, apparently. There's a campus verification feature. This launched last August, and it lets users add their college campus to their profile, and then you can see a list of other students in your school in order to find and connect with others on campus. And it's available at 6,000 universities through a partnership with Unidays, UN for, I guess, university, I Days, DAYS, which is a student verification platform. Now, once you confirm your status, that's when you get access to this new campus hub, where you can join and create group chats with up to 300 classmates. And this is the piece that you were getting to, I think, Lois. These group chats are exclusively to verified students at the same school. So it's
Feels like
What?
Facebook circa
like
2004.
Yeah.
what do you mean?
Because Facebook
started out to do that.
Yeah, that's all Facebook was. You had to have a college affiliation, and
yeah.
then they opened up so you could have a city affiliation, and then they opened up wide. So it feels like we've gone back like 20 years.
Well, we may have gone backwards, but I mean, TikTok is, I mean, none of these kids are on Facebook. Right.
But I'm just saying, it's not like this is a new and different idea. This is an old and utilized idea. Like it'll start here, and then we'll say, oh, we like groups. Other people like groups too, and then it will open up. I do think it's interesting because it's creating an interaction and a place where people can go and have potentially meaningful interactions, as opposed to what you and I do, David, where we go and have unmeaningful interactions.
I wonder what's going to make it. I wonder what's going to make it different. You know, from Discord or from Instagram chats or things like that. Because, like you said, this in some ways it feels like it's going backwards. And by the way, I apologize. I know this image is blurry, but I can only give you what they give me. I don't know. There's clearly there's a need for this.
Relate to what they were doing here in California State University of Monterey Bay when it opened. Was a brand new campus, and we had no student union, and we had no bulletin board for rights, but we had a common chat and an online bulletin board. And so there is a real neat advantage to having a community which is within the university. When you go back before that, if you remember AOL used to have groups. And when I taught at CSU Chico, we had Chico State as a group, and the only people who could be in there were Chico State students. And actually I used AOL as a textbook for one of our telecommunications courses. So I've observed the sort of value of a cloistered community representing, students at a particular university.
And I noticed that their groups are going to be limited to only 300 people. Now think about that. How big is the university? How many thousands of people are in there? If you have a number of different groups, none of which can be more than 300, who gets to decide who's in, who's out? I mean, I'm wondering if this is going to make it things.
No, but I think that happens naturally, don't you, Lois? I mean, different. The rowing team has a group, and the.
Well, that's different, though. Yeah. This says anyone in your university. However, you can't all be in the same.
Yeah, but I think you can create groups. I don't think that it's making groups for you. I think it allows you to create groups up to 300, and you can choose who's in and who's out.
See, and that's what
join
I'm thinking,
if it's available.
You're going to have segregated and distinct groups of people who are like-minded, rather than an open forum where anybody in the school can join in.
Yeah, well, we know how
it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet. But
right.
That's my
we know how good open forums are. Twitter. That's. I'm not sure that just having a message board where anyone can write whatever dreck they want to is a better answer. I think there's value in. Look, what this is in some ways, Lois, is you're right in that it's going to create bubbles where people are talking to. But I think that happens anyway at the university level. I think it happens in life. We all create circles in which we share common ideas, common values, common things that we appreciate, and we talk about them. So I don't worry too much about that.
And the nature of algorithms, people are set to like-minded things. So what would be different about it is if it said, hey, you might like this group from your university because these are people who like the same things you like. That would be probably the step up. Creepy, but the step up.
Yeah.
Or it could be, here's the first 300 people and here's the next 300 people, and not cherry picking, not trying to make groups that are all the same. And as far as someone doing something bad, you're a student at the university, you're identified. I mean, it's not like you can put in a fake handle or something.
You know what is I think, I mean, this is a brilliant marketing play because there's going to be a college feed where you'll get a personalized feed that surfaces content from your verified students in your group and content related to your university. So what TikTok is doing here is saying, let this be your central messaging app and your central information app. Oh, and in between all of that, go ahead and do that doom scrolling thing that we're known for. So it's a very, very smart move on their part. the question, I think, is, are we even going to have universities and campuses on which to use this? Because that is our main topic for tonight, for this morning, for today. So we last week talked about Khan TED Institute, which is promising a competency-based AI era degree for under $10,000. This is a bachelor's degree, presumably a bachelor's degree for under $10,000. And so I guess that sparked for me the question of, is this the beginning of a real reinvention of higher education, or is this just another attempt to make college cheaper by stripping away the very human experiences that make college valuable? And so I think we should probably start with our since we are in graduation season, we should just go ahead and start with our graduation. Oh, I'm sorry, John, there you're ready for graduation ceremonies, I see.
I'm a retired professor, so I'm sort of like that greyhound dog that hears the bell and still wants to run. But I thought if we were going to be talking about universities, I would get back into the university regalia that we used at graduation. And for almost every year of the 37 years I was teaching, I attended our students' commencement exercises. And at Chico, I was the grand marshal for the students. That's usually an honorary position. I think the reason I got it was I was wearing the purple outfit, so it was easy to tell the students who to line up under. But we're talking about change in universities, and you talked about the Khan Academy and the digital cliff of students. I just want to point out that at our most sacred ceremonies, commencement, we still wear the garb of the Middle Ages. So universities have been around for a long time. They resist change, but they've changed greatly. So I think we're going to have a fun discussion. I'm going to get out of this before I melt.
I love that.
I wonder if you
I love that so much.
I wonder if you can
So he
on
takes
Zoom
the,
do a visual effect where you could put on yourself the regalia on Zoom.
Oh yeah, we need a filter.
Zoom,
You're right.
Zoom
We
does
need
have,
Like a little filter.
That
Graduation
you put a little mortar board on it, which is interesting. It's that was one of the for what do they call it in Zoom? I should know. The
filters?
Video
filter. One of them was the typical. This is a slightly different hat than the mortar board, but I did a study on graduation gowns and how it happened from the Middle Ages to now. Part of it's tradition. One thing, if you've seen the doctoral gown, I'm going to turn for a second, and you see the hood, you see the back there. Back in the Middle Ages, when there was roaming scholars, the professor would turn his back, and the students who were following him would pay essentially by putting food or money in and that's the hood that usually shows the colors of the university. I never trusted turning my back on the students. I'm not sure what they would have put in there, but anyway,
Well,
I'll be
I'm
back.
officially giving the trophy for
Best in show,
John
best
to
prop.
have best prop of the week. Yes,
usually that's you, Dave. Yeah, usually
that's
I
right.
think
I'm handing him
There's no way
the torch.
You can't.
To him,
do
I throw
any
the
of that.
torch.
Yeah, Leo is
Yeah.
saying hello, welcome, Professor Harry Potter. So am I wrong when I put out there that this is the beginning? I asked as a question before. I'm just going to say as a statement. This is the beginning of a real reinvention of higher education. That more and more people are questioning the value of higher education, or let me change that. They're questioning the value of traditional college or university, the 4-year college or university. Am I right about that? Is there a sea change happening? And is that change driven, at least in part, by technology, by artificial intelligence? Am I crazy, or is this actually happening? What do you think?
It happened a long time ago.
All right, tell me more.
Yeah, I think it's changing capitalism, not in technology.
A change in capitalism?
I feel like it's a push towards capitalism than technology, because we're now looking at education based solely on what your job outcome can be. And you're ranking those jobs by money that you can receive from those jobs. So I not sure that it's technology that's changed education rather than education being like value, losing value or having a different value based on, solely on money and not on other outcomes that happen by going to college.
So what
Well,
is that
I
other
think there's been issues
I'm sorry.
around, how we pay for college. But most people who aren't part of the academy, their references having come to university, being a student, and that experience. A university is so much broader than that as in terms of research institution. We had the land grant colleges, which became agricultural extensions. I think Lois said it right. I mean, universities have been constantly changing. And I think the keeping the old garb is sort of an attempt to keep some sort of historical perspective. But if you look at the roaming scholars that were in the Middle Ages, it's very different now that when we have the internet. And probably the biggest change with technology is when the internet was started, which was a connection of research centers. There was also, for military and the like, but it essentially changed the way universities interacted at the level of faculty members communicating with other faculty members. And now all you're seeing is that being expanded beyond just the academics talking about it. And the COVID-19 impact was the technology really hit every level of education.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to point out that I did a presentation in 1996, 30 years ago, to professors about what the future of university would be. And it was that the distance learning will become online participation, and lectures will have 5,000 students, and professors would be paid really well if they're superstars. They would be superstar academics, and they would be really good at teaching and presenting things, and people would love them and sign up for their courses. And I was kind of booed out of the room because they were very annoyed with me, and I think I struck a chord. I always like it when people are annoyed at me. It means I must have said something that, they didn't like, and that's good. But yes, in 96, I worked at a place called the Academic Technologies for Learning, believe it or not. It was about learning. And we were teaching professors how to make multimedia because that was the next frontier. So I've been through this meat grinder once before here, and I'm kind of with Tamara on the idea that there's a lot of outside influence trying to tell the universities how to do what they do. And the universities existed long before. I mean, there were universities before there was a USA. So I think, we've got this medieval garb now that we throws us back to that era. But it's a status that is not religious. It's fully theoretical, scientific, the liberal arts kind of concept. And now we've turned it into a technical institution. I'm a graduate of a tech institute, so I know the difference. And I worked at a university, so I know what the profs are fighting and working with and the kind of aggressive ignorance they face today. So I think, the future, or, is it worthwhile, is a personal moral choice. It wasn't worthwhile for me, so I didn't go, and I haven't suffered for it. But I live in a country that had a kind of free education idea.
You know what's interesting, Dave, about John Wallace in the chat said, who would have guessed, this is about the technical versus traditional, who would have guessed, he writes, pumping out a bunch of art and English majors who never used their degree would degrade the value of higher education. Is that the problem? Is the problem that, that our universities have not been technical enough? Let's go to the English major.
As a 3-time English major who has been paid from literally day one to sit in writers' offices and create worlds that don't exist, I take umbrage with that. There's a lot of discussion about we have to stop teaching writing and we have to stop teaching English. And this is the hill I will die on, because my degree says I can read and I can reason and I can write. But more importantly, we need liberal arts and we need writers to be able to continue telling our stories. And when we are talking about this idea of AI taking over and technology encroaching on humanity, this is one of the things that keeps humanity going. And I would say that not everybody does not make money. The pieces that I don't make money in my life are certainly not the writing aspect of it.
So I went to college. I was a the second person in both my families, my father's and mother's families, to go to college. And I went because they said, we can put you to college, you gotta go. And so I went. Was I motivated by a career choice? No. Was I intending to do anything with that college degree? No. I went because my family said, that's what you're going to do. Okay. And I did it. But what I got out of college was different than what I think my folks were expecting. What I learned was how to be a functional person in the society in which I was living. I came to Davis, I learned how to get along with other people and do all these things that I had never done. And so for me, even though I never used my degree, actually I didn't finish the degree because I got sidetracked by fighting forest fires. But it was worth it to me to be here and learn how to be me. Now, that was at a time when it didn't cost as much. I mean, that was in the 70s. That was a long time ago.
Right. That's
right now. Would it be worth it for someone to go and not use their degree? I don't know.
Yeah, that's. I'm so glad you brought that up, Lois, because as you were speaking, that's what I was thinking. That those soft skills, collaboration, compassion, patience, finding yourself, all those things that are vital. I think we do. I learned how to live independently. I had never lived independently, and moving to college taught me how to live in a safe way. And then slowly I moved to an apartment, not a dorm, but it taught me how to live independently. But I think that part of this fundamental question is part of this question has nothing to do with technology at all. And that is what you just said. Is it still worth it to get those soft skills, which are vital skills? Is it still worth it to pay what we're paying? The second question for me at least is what university offers still as valuable today because of the way the technology has changed learning and growth? I'm thinking back to when I went to Brandeis University. When I was at Brandeis up in Waltham, Massachusetts, I was one of very few people who did not spend a lot of time in the library. And that's because I was a terrible student. I should have. Back then, you did research, whether it was the card catalog for me or a little later computers, but you still went somewhere to do research. You opened books. We don't do that anymore. So
I think it really does depend. I think it depends on what your value in your education is. So I went to, and I've taught in very small Lutheran Christian colleges. The value of teaching if you look at the mission statement of a Christian K-12 school, for example, it is actually the education part is the least important thing. The most important thing is the ministry portion of it. And you can decide if that meets your values or doesn't meet your values, but that is the base mission of a Christian school. It's great if a Christian school also has high education values, but that's a completely flipped paradigm to what we would say a school is going to be, right? High education is your first value. So if your value system is going to a school to get a good return on investment, then that's one thing, but that's where your value is. You're saying my judge of the value of this education is if I make XYZ dollars. If your value system is, I was the first in my family to graduate high school, go to college. My sister went right after me. She actually went before me to university, and I was the first to graduate. The value proposition, I was in kind of Lois's point of view. I knew all growing up that I was going to college. My dad, who was a mechanic, was like, my kids are going to college. You're going to college. You know who didn't know what college was? That was me. I found out that college was 4 more years of school, and I literally burst into tears. I was like, this, you've got to be crazy. So the idea that I've gone over and over and over again would continue to go is confusing to everybody. So it's really what your values are, and what we're hearing about education right now is that the value is, we're questioning what the value should be. So we're saying liberal arts degrees, not okay. We don't value that as a society. I still value it, as that's why I win.
John Wallace wrote in
Well,
the
there,
chat.
there are lots of different universities, as you said. Dave, you mentioned earlier 6,000 universities that are in that group. So it's really hard to say what a university is. And then there's a question of value. What is the value to you as an individual? But what is the value to the society of having educated people? And then in the California State University system, they, not on an individual basis, but they're able to put a dollar value on the productivity that the California State University system does to the funds that the state collects from taxes to be able to, function as a state. So when we talk value, there's lots of different values. It's both individual, but it's also what value does the university have? We have research universities that are discovering drugs, exploring outer space, exploring deep in the ocean. And we have very small teaching universities where the focus on students interacting with their faculty members and being challenged. So I think that the metrics have gotten confused because of bad management in terms of how we fund universities. Universities have not been very clear about what their mission and visions are and differentiating what they do. And we have some outliers that are really pretty telling when you have people who are deep in debt with something that's not going to be economically sound, which doesn't make sense. But we also have students who, through scholarship, through attending university, people who were talented individuals who would be contributors to society, whether it be science or the arts, that would not have been able to move socially and mobility up the chain.
I think it's part of what you're getting at here, and then I'm going to jump over to Dave and Tony, is that part of what's being questioned or challenged is the assumption that university is for everyone. It isn't necessarily. There are a whole bunch of people for whom university is not the right choice, but there are some people for whom it is the right choice. The value proposition is challenging because the jobs that we used to be able to get with a college degree either don't exist anymore, or the degree doesn't guarantee us that job. John Wallace was just saying that his daughter's going to University of Miami, I guess U of M, $30,000 a year. And I can tell you, because my eldest daughter went to University of Miami, that's after financial aid. That's after a tremendous amount of financial aid and scholarships and things like that, because I just finished paying that off for my eldest daughter. She had a great experience. She's not using anything that she studied there in her current life and in her current job. Nothing. Was that worth it?
But that's been
Maybe.
true for a long time, though.
Absolutely.
That statistic's
right.
been true for a long time.
And so, like
82% of people graduate, use a different degree.
So like with everything, I guess my question is technology just amplifying and is expediting the questions that have been here forever? Let me get to Dave and Tony. Go ahead, Dave.
I was going to go to the affordability thing and then whether it's worth it, because I hesitate to mention members of my family without their permission. I'm from 7. I'm the middleest of 7, and I'm the only one who qualified to go to university. My siblings have had a real tough time through their lives, and it is probably a result of them not having an understanding of how systems work, how government works, how people in professional positions don't have any vested interest in whether you're really good at what you do or not, and are suspicious of judges, don't trust the police, think a lot of things are going on that have no basis in reality, because this is the world they're living in. And it seems to me that, I talked about the experience of college. It's a value and it is a useful thing. I think it's worth it if your college offers the kind of, I don't know, extracurricular things that you can do, or the people you're allowed to meet or hear speak. Then you're going to get a well-rounded education and not a technical one like I got. Now, I decided not to go because I wanted to pursue media and universities weren't doing it at that time. But I think in the sense that it's worth it, it has increasingly been difficult to get in, but still worth it. But on the other side, as my wife taught at a university, students don't have spare time anymore, and they're working just to pay for being at home or school or having an apartment on their own. And not many of them are really leaving university without any debt. So the sense that is it worth it? Did I go into debt for no reason at all? Because the degree I have now in computing science is now being replaced by AI. I think I got to go back to school. So I would say it's, as John has said, different universities have a different focus, and picking the right one might be just exploring another idea for a year and then decide if you want to go to university.
Yeah, fair enough. Tony, go ahead.
I think there are tangible things that you get from going to a university that does not necessarily come across in terms of the job that you eventually get. And what I mean by that is that, David, you mentioned that your daughter went to University of Miami and that she is not working in that field. I would argue that the experience that she had and the interaction that she had with her peers on campus and all of the things that she experienced at college has helped her be the person that she is today. The other argument is that I would argue that we are most often, when we first go to college, we really don't know what we want to do. And so there is this exchange that takes place where we begin to sort of hone in on the things that we think that we might be interested in doing. As a person who got a bachelor's degree in religion and a minor in sociology and another minor in English, I did not really, in a way I did what I needed to do. I mean, I'm a minister, but all the jobs that I've had have been extremely diverse in the way in which they evolved. But the most important thing for me was that the exchange that I had with my peers at the university, I had the benefit of going to what I think is one of the best universities in the nation, in the Morehouse College, alma mater of Dr. King, and that there is one thing that we do, or that has been going on at Morehouse from, 80 years at least, where we have chapel on Thursdays. And what that chapel means is that it is an opportunity for people, not just in religion, but politics, in any facet that you can think of in the world. And they're there to give us ideas and hope and encouragement that there is no mountain that we cannot achieve. And the last thing I want to say is that I think it's important for us to recognize that people who went to college in hopes of just getting a job, that is, for all intents and purposes, no longer the reality of the situation. I would argue that people would need to, in this time, embrace liberal arts and technology, and that they think of themselves as contributors to society as it continues to evolve. This is kind of a reformation. We may not want to look at it like that, but I really sincerely believe that this is a time where people need to embrace technology and also hone in on those things that help us with our ethics and character.
Okay, let me throw out a question related to what you just suggested, Tony. And this is coming out of, I happened to be, before we jumped on here, I happened to be scrolling through my Facebook feed, and I saw that one of my friends is starting rabbinical school. Rabbinical school is, generally speaking, if you go to one of the big seminaries, it's a 5-year program, a 5-year post, what do you call it, graduate program, sort of like a longer doctorate, where you become a rabbi. Okay. I did that. This friend is doing it at one of the big seminaries. There are 3 big seminaries. And she in her post, explained to me that she's doing it in their new online version of their school. This is brand new. Now, the school that I went to, the rabbinical school I went to, has been online since COVID. They've really, I think, done a good job of creating a deep learning experience. But this, no one else will appreciate how shocking this is. To me, this school being online, offering an online version of their learning, of their pathway to becoming an ordained rabbi or cantor, is mind-blowing to me. So one of my questions is, how does learning change with online learning, with so many universities, to even University of Florida?
I can speak to that because one of my degrees is digital.
Right? So
Go for it.
How does college university learning change given all the technologies? And everyone go.
Go.
So
Tamara,
I would say that
Tony, Tamara, John, Dave, Lois, Tony, Tamara, John.
I would say that if the university that is doing the online program is sort of following the office hour model, in that they're looking for great camera, great audio, then you have the opportunity for exchange as if you are in person. One of the best experiences that I had in college was the conversation and the debate that we had on this. Because what we did was we studied the material, and then we had this exchange and going back and forth with each other that was powerful and meaningful. And I think that if you are in a digital space and you are providing quality video and quality audio, that you can have genuine exchange that makes a different, almost, I'm not going to say it is as good as in person, but almost. And the way I back myself up with this is that I am here with each and every one of you, and I have a relationship with each and every one of you, and the relationship that I have with each and every one of you is an authentic one.
You don't have to wait, John. Just jump right in.
Oh, yeah,
So
John,
I can
sorry.
speak to this.
Or Tamara,
go ahead, John.
whoever. I don't know. Whoever I said first. Tamara, you go first.
I'll Tamara. Just go
Great.
ahead. Tamara showed up on the screen.
I'm here. I'll talk. So I can speak to this because my second master's, which is a master's in teaching, I did with University of Southern California in 2000, and started in 2009, graduated in 2011. And it was an online program. It was one of their first kind of forays into online teaching.
Did you say 2009?
I will tell. Yes, I did say 2009. And to speak to Tony's point, when you came in, you got a camera, and you had. So this was a good and bad thing, because it was part of the university, all of the university professors. It was, I will tell you, more comprehensive than sitting in a class. The syllabus was 38 pages for every single class. And I had a rigorous education with a combination of technology and then being in a classroom. So I still had real people, but all of my program was online, and we were a part of a cohort that went through this online program before online was cool. And the biggest question then is like, is this a real degree if it's online? And if it's this was like the beginning of this time. So now we don't even think about that because we think about COVID where everybody was online. So what I hear a lot of is people giving a less than to whether your education is possible in a digital space. And it can be. I've taken some online courses that were less than. I've also taken some in-person classes that were less than, and I will not say what they are because I'm sure those professors are much better than they were when I took them because everybody grows, right? So I think that the question becomes, can technology be a way of educating, and can technology form authentic relationships? The school that I went to, literally, I presented with a professor there at the National English Teachers Conference the year after because we had all formed close relationships and we were now colleagues together and presenting at conferences. So I think that it can be a meaningful and rigorous application. It just depends, just like anything else. So, and this was, again, 2009 to 2011. So it's not new and it's not, but I think we now have kind of a lesser feeling of it because we go, well, COVID forced everybody in there. And so everybody got less education because they weren't in person. And it doesn't have to be that way. But that program was specifically designed to foster relations, designed to to be a digital program, a digital first program. If it's not designed that way, then you're not going to get the best out of what the digital space has to offer. Same with anything else, just like digital events. It's fascinating
to me that you had that back in 2009. That's amazing.
Really?
Yeah.
I know. Why does that fascinate you though? Because I don't think
it just feels like it's so
necessarily a new concept. It was so long ago.
But again, that's not a commentary on our age.
But so here's the thing:
the technology.
But it was a very technology first program, right? Yeah. So even all of my student teaching, we had to upload videos and edit and upload videos for every single thing that we did. There were definite downsides to it. I was a big, I'm a big loudmouth no matter what, so I had things to say about the negative stuff, but at the same time, it was effective in that way.
Yeah.
So David, if you want to feel really old, and we talk about universities doing more than teaching, doing research. The research I started in 1978 was using RCA GlobeSat for distance education between the Northwestern Medical School and a ship halfway to sea using slow scan television. So this distance online learning has been growing as the technology has changed and Moore's law has affected it. Those first slow scan satellite teleconferences were like a Polaroid over wires. A new picture got painted every 30 seconds, and we were worrying with the fact that it wasn't motion video make a difference. And the people who took these courses didn't realize it wasn't motion video because professors don't move that much anyway. But I think what we're seeing is COVID was not online learning. That was a crisis where we did what we could. Successful online learning programs were planned to be that way. They were executed, they were evaluated. And so there's a very difference between what we did during COVID and what we did, post-COVID or pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, we had the term of distance education. And this was a field that I started in. But I always came down that the distance in the education that I was worried about was not the distance from the student from each other or from the facility, but the distance between your ears. That's the distance education.
Yeah. No, I'm from that era myself because I started in at the university when distance education was taking a hold, and they had installed lots of high quality video conferencing gear, and they made me the guy who trained them how to use it because I come from TV, right? So I did. I taught people how to do that, and the 2000s, I was teaching government people how to do it because they were saving money. Canada is a gigantic place, so distance education was a natural for us. And they used to have university over the radio and that sort of stuff. And university of the air was a term that people used to describe distance education. I always, in my lecture in 96, I said, that professor needs a staff of 22 just to handle the students and to handle the registration and do all the marking and exam stuff and all that stuff that a professor is required to do most times. So yeah, I'm with it on Tamara's case that the content and the medium are two different things. And we have a better medium now for doing it, and we have better connection than we ever had. And that impetus has put us on the front stage that, okay, now we have this bandwidth. What do we do with it? And what do we do with it? Do we learn from it? Well, my feeling is, and this goes back to something when Tony was talking that occurred to me, I think the technologists, the people who are giving us this opportunity, I've forgotten that it's not training, it's learning. I come from a school that was all about training you. You didn't really get a better education about English because many of them were, not quite speaking good English. And they got trained to be a welder, a painter, a sign maker, and now a digital graphic artist. So I think in the sense that the machinery of education goes through changes, but the impetus always has to be on how well people are learning to learn, or in the case of research, know how to look things up. And to quote one of my favorite instructors, get a real BS detector so you know when things don't quite add up. And if you can teach kids that, they are going to survive.
So Lois, I want to give you a chance to chime in. Before I do that, I just want to put out one other question for us to think about, and that is specifically about things like Content Academy or Institute, content. And I'm curious, John, we'll let Lois jump in first, but do you see these as a threat to traditional universities? And is this the wave of the future? Online, as you all have been talking about, designed for online learning, really high quality professors and learning and experiences at a fraction of the cost. Is this what is coming? Lois, let's get you in first, though.
Let's get John to answer that because I want to shift us a little bit. Hey, John, you go.
Okay, well, there's lots of ways to approach this. The idea of online education being less expensive has been proven wrong time after time. The introduction of radio was first perceived as an educational tool, but somebody put an ad on it and now it became a marketing tool. Public television and the Annenberg Foundation, they were going to create the best courses, the stars that, the best lecturer on psychology, the best lecturer, and that was going to be television across the country. There have been lots of predictions of how technology will greatly change our teaching, learning processes that we do. Technology is a lever. It's going to help us, but teaching and learning is a very human thing. And David, when you spoke, I was saying, yeah, let's go back to 76, but I realized this is, again, a connection technology. I remember my father's an engineer learning about this thing called a Texas Instrument Integrated Circuit. And technology was changing so fast that he was an engineer working for the Air Force, that they had a sunrise semester, which they did morning shows for engineers prior to when they started work. And to get that to the people, they flew airplanes around and had transmitters so that they could receive it. Online or distance learning or technology doesn't always make it cheaper. It may make it faster. Back to what you were saying, Dave, when you were teaching the other faculty and they were afraid they were going to be taken over by technology. I really feel if there's any teacher that can be replaced by technology, they should be. But we have to figure out how do we use these tools, because they are power tools, to increase the information transfer to empower our students. I wore the gown of commencement. your university degree is not an end, it is a beginning.
I'm not sure that I fully buy the idea that online learning isn't cheaper. If you don't have to build buildings, if you don't have to have capital expenses, but I don't know. Tamara and Lois. Go ahead, Tamara.
My online degree program in 2009 at the University of Southern California was $53,000.
Right, but the fact that hold on, the fact that they're charging you more money doesn't mean that that's what it costs.
Right. Well, here's the deal. I think we're talking about two separate things. We're talking about, is technology changing the wave of education, and is education too expensive? Education is too expensive, and do we have to look for ways of making it more affordable to more people? That's one conversation. I can go back even a little further than John, because I have a book which I thought I was going to be able to pull out, but it's not even the shelf behind me. This little teeny tiny film book written in like 1907 that predicts that all kids are going to be off of the streets and they're going to be in movie theaters, where we will instruct them using movies, because that is the wave of the future. Anytime there's a new technology, we think about ways of realistically monetizing it, so in the name of education. So even though something may be cheaper, Khan Academy may be cheaper, they're not a not-for-profit organization. They are not an organization that is hoping that they are going to offer a product to people out of the altruism. Otherwise, it would be free. And that is not what is happening. So we can't separate out the fact that just because they might be cheaper and they're saving money on buildings and things like that, that they aren't in fact in search of having a business model that works.
Now you have me wondering if it is actually nonprofit, and I don't know. I'm searching for it right now, but let me.
If it ain't front and center, then it's not nonprofit. If they haven't put that in the first three paragraphs,
no,
then,
yeah, I know.
sorry,
They keep talking about it being radically low cost, but I don't see.
But being radically low cost, where they can get more people to come to them instead of going to a university, that is a good business model, right?
No, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And they're still
Lois,
selling convenience, which is a profit motive. Yeah.
Right. Lois, go ahead.
Okay, so the shift that I want to do in our discussion here is to talk about the things that we get at an in-person college or university that we don't necessarily get online. I hear Tamara saying that there are ways that you can make it happen online, but So do you remember way back when there was this COVID lockdown and all the little kids had to stay home and watch their screens instead of going in and going to kindergarten and being with other people? And there was a cohort that would have started kindergarten that year and didn't, and wasn't in school with other people for a while. And they apparently had quite a few problems derived from that. Now, there was more happening in the world at the time too. So, but my thought is, if you take freshmen in college and don't send them to a real college, they don't get to interact with other human beings. They don't learn all those social skills that I learned at college. Instead, they're sitting in front of a screen. Are we creating a cohort that is going to have social problems, regardless of how good their education is?
We have that now, because we have that now, because that's the cohort that is in college and that is graduating college now, they were also in lockdown during formative time in their life. Right. I can see it even in entertainment. Right. So I'm a casting director. I ran a session a couple of weeks ago, and I can almost tell you who graduated when, because they enter the room differently. They don't know the things that you might learn in how to put your audition book together. You don't learn that necessarily in a class. You learn that with your group of friends, and you see your friend's book and you're like, I want to have that. You learn those things from interactions. You can get interactions, and usually what happens in a group that is, a chosen people who are doing an online course, a lot of times those groups will get together. So for example, I had people who are in my education program from all around the world, which enhanced my understanding of education and of teaching, as opposed to going only to a university in my state where the research was only about my state and there were other teachers who dealt with just my state. I had a real rich global conversation in that space about education that was very, very different than if I were to go in the same state that I was teaching, right? So that's interesting. But we also had cohorts. I'm very close to USC. So we had a bunch of people in our group who met at USC every week, and we went to the library and made familiar relations with people, and friends. Same thing happened throughout the cohort. So there are ways to foster real, live, interactive things. But I do think you're right, Lois. I think that we're not talking about an all or nothing, and we're forgetting the other. John has brought it up. The part of the university that we all think about is kids going to college. And in some ways, and I don't want to offend anybody by this, but in some ways, that's the least important work that a lot of those professors do. They are doing research that is everyday research. And, like we're looking at them saying, well, teachers don't make enough money. So that's not going to be a place where you can get funding to be a teacher. Okay, who's going to teach? I'm curious that's not considered a real job. So and in fact, the education department of most universities helps fund other things in the university because it's one of the biggest cohorts of universities.
So Tamara, I wish I would have known you were at USC, because Cal State Teach was your competitor, or a competitor program. And at Cal State Teach, those students who were learning online did the same video, but they were in classrooms being paid. So they not only were getting paid,
absolutely,
and then they had scholarships to school.
But so here's the thing. I had that opportunity. I chose USC because one of the negative sides of going to a very small Christian college was that no one knew where you went. So I was very strategic in choosing USC over Cal Teach, and I don't use my degree at this point.
I'm hearing John and Tamara argue for the value that university still provides. I'm hearing Dave talk about the vocational aspects of learning. I'm hearing Lois and Tony talk a little bit about the what I called before the soft skills, the non-academic value of university. So here's my question: what is the core product of higher education today? Is it knowledge? Is it credential? Is it networking? Is it maturity like it was for me? Career access, social formation?
Yes.
What?
It's learning.
No, you can't say
learning
yes.
how to learn.
Learning how to
better
learn.
humans.
If you haven't learned how to learn as younger than that,
We're
then I think
making
you might
better
be in trouble.
humans,
But
that's all.
Tony, go ahead.
Yeah.
I've brought this up before, and I think it really comes down to, are you getting trained? Or are you being educated? If you're being trained, then you're only trained to do specific things. If you're being educated, then there is no limit to what you can draw on. You can look at your environment, you can think about what you'd like to do, and then you can recognize that this pathway that I was trained in is not what I need to do. But because I'm educated, I can pivot. And I can pivot and do other things that may not have anything to do with my degree, but because I'm educated and I can think outside of the box, I have hope.
And that's exactly what I mean by learning how to learn.
Right.
I do believe that, that there are some things you can't teach without a group. So, singing, music, dance, drama, soft arts, like we've been talking about, they have to have a collaboration, and it's a team sport, as it were. You can't teach football just by one guy on a screen telling you how it works. When I was in high school, that's all we got in phys ed was how various games are played. I wasn't being, developed as a person who was fit. I was just being taught all the different sports that you can participate in. And I think in a sense, the technologists again are just trying to persuade us that this is possible. And I remember a website that I was introduced to in 1993 called No Significant Difference, which looked at all the different media that have been applied to higher education, and they studied the effectiveness of each one. And they found that there is no significant difference between a person who learned it on any particular medium or in person. The outcomes were the same.
That's a fantastic name for
I
it.
think when you look at higher education or university, think of the Nobel scholars, the scientists that went through an academic program. Universities are generating knowledge. They're
New knowledge. Yeah.
generating new knowledge, but they're keeping the records of the old knowledge and the transfer. And I just think we have to think of universities as more than just a place where undergraduate students get a degree. It is a much broader concept.
Right. Well, that's to Tamara's point. Yeah.
I think one
Yes.
of the things that I keep thinking about in this conversation is particularly how it relates to AI or technology is I'm curious about this idea that we have this Google Cloud or this curated life up until university. And what we're seeing now is a real backlash against higher education and against them. You hear things like people are being indoctrinated at universities and they're, because they're given a broader scope. And we've seen even in K-12 schools around the country where they're saying you have to teach a certain way, you can't discuss things a certain way. So I think there is definitely an attack on knowledge, and then there's definitely attack on knowledge workers within the workforce. But I think one of the downsides, which is kind of an underlying consequence of this curated life that we live, is that we are used to being served information that we want and opinions that agree with ours. Even our AI agrees with us. And so when you go to a university where you're being challenged to think outside of something you disagree with or something that is so foreign to you or something so different, that's not currently being looked at as an opportunity for growth. It's looked at as an opportunity to stifle my own ability to curate my own life. And I think that's a negative impact that we're seeing at all levels of education based on what our fast food life is handing us, and that it is curating what we see and what we believe and what we think, that it is making it more difficult to accept that there might be other ideas that don't align with our own upbringing and our own ideas.
So,
and I think you brought a point out that happens in universities. Are you true to your campus or are you true to your discipline? Right. I was at a university in Chico State and CSU Monterey Bay.
My sister went there to Chico State.
Oh, good. But she might have been there when I was there. It was the #1 party school. But but there's a whole nother community of people who are involved that I worked with, the researchers in using technology and education, the people who worked with the Plato system, the people who are using computer-based education. And that's a much broader community than just a community. And that's what universities really provide, is that community of scholars, but they have to have a home, they have to have a heat, they have, so there's a campus, they have research laboratories, but universities provide an incredible resource to everyone in the world.
Amen.
So here's my question. I'm looking at her picture right now. My youngest daughter is ready for college next year. She's entering her senior year of high school. Do I pay for private school? Do I wait for TEDx, whatever it's called, to open their university? What are parents to choose?
Give her a gap year. Let her think about it for
Give her a gap year. That's a smart move, actually.
Yep.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lois.
So I think it's not a
Hold
question
on,
what
John, hold on one second.
universities.
Let me just get Lois in real quick.
So I think that if you are deciding what to do about college, the question we have not even addressed yet is, what are the people in businesses or careers thinking about? In other words, do they say you must have a college degree in psychology in order to get this job? or you must have a minimum of this amount of schooling or whatever. Is that still a thing? And which universities are they willing to accept as being valid? So that, I think, is a question to answer before you decide where to go.
Yeah, it's a really important question. And I don't. Well, I'll reserve judgment. It's a very important question.
I have stair-stepping nieces and nephews, and the oldest went to school for a semester and then decided to open a business. The middle one, who's just graduating this year, has decided to use his money, move out of the house, get an apartment, and go to a junior college that feeds into the university he would like to go to.
Yep.
And the other one is hardcore traditional university. She graduates next year, and she will likely go. She's a soccer player, and she's been, touring campuses, and she's much more likely to do that thing. So I think it is individual.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're all good paths.
Yeah. All right, Tony, and then Professor, you're getting the last word.
So I would say I think there are a couple of things that you need to consider. If she is thinking about a career in a professional level, lawyer, doctor, educator, PhD level, or anything like that, I would say definitely think about traditional university. If she is unsure of what she wants to do, then I would say maybe a junior college might be the first step where she can actually decide if this is what she wants to do. But I would say that if she is definitely thinking about something that's professional, then I think traditional university is the way to go. If she's unsure, community college.
And Professor.
You're saying, what should you encourage her to do? You should encourage her to think about what she wants to do. When my daughter was looking for schools, she was looking at very different schools. The statement that she said, well, what if I go into the wrong school? And this was a hard decision. So she had to make a lot of processing. I knew any school was going to be great for her because she would thrive in that environment. When she got into one school, she said, Dad, I said, I'd love you to go to that school because I love visiting there. It's Southern California. It'd be wonderful. And she turned to me and said, would you like me to graduate or get really good at volleyball? So she was deciding what did she want. She was making her first career decisions. When she entered the school, she changed her major every semester. And I sort of questioned her, I said, why are you always changing your major? She said, well, I really don't know what I want to do. And whenever you're in the major, they give you priority to the classes. So I could always pick the best classes. She came up with this on her own. So I think you have a daughter who has two older, are they both sisters?
They're all sisters, yes.
Yeah. So she's probably going to do something different than either of them did. And you should just encourage her to find her own direction. And that may be taking a gap year, maybe going to a big university. My daughter picked a school in a very cold climate. And when she was picking schools, I gave her a chart of the average daily temperature and said, you're an intelligent woman. Where do you want to go to school? And I assumed she would have gone to San Diego and got in-state tuition. She ended up going to a private university in Chicago, and she pointed out that that chart that I gave her, when you flipped it upside down, was how much tuition I had to cover. It's a shooting match. But if you got two of them through, I think you'll get your third one through.
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope so. I'm so grateful, all of you, for joining me tonight. Thank you so much for being here. My thought for next week, actually, is to build on this a little bit, but move away from the institutions and talk about what expertise means nowadays. Is there such a thing as expertise anymore? Is it necessary to be an expert? And the piece that maybe connects today's discussion to that is how do you become an expert if you're not studying 4 years in college? What happens to all these low-level or mid-level positions that AI is stealing from us or taking away from us? How do you become an expert if you never get to work down there in the trenches? So maybe that's what we'll dive into next week on expertise. Because, of course, look at these experts I've got right here. I'm so grateful to all of you, Dave, Lois, Tony, Tamara, John. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. And I also want to thank everyone who's watching us online, to John Wallace and Andre, Wayne Fox, Brody. Good to see all of you here. Thank you so much for being a part of it. Roscoe, good to see you here also. Everyone on YouTube. We do this every Thursday. Join us at therundown.show, THERUNDOWN.show, and visit us also at officehours.global. We have another Office Hours show coming up tomorrow morning, Friday morning. For me, it's Friday morning. So I know I just disappeared. I'm coming right back. There we go. Sorry about that. That's my Rode X. My Rode Streamer X does that. That's the problem with that. I got to get rid of that. But in any case, until then, my friends, we'll see you next time. Bye. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend. Where's my outro? My outro isn't playing. All right, I got to play my outro for you. Should I just sing the outro?
You don't want me to sing.
I think I should just sing the outro.
Do
Maybe
it.
not.
Yeah.